Welcome to a busted play, an illegal use of hands to the face short.
Week 1 of the NFL season is upcoming, so we thought we'd shoot you our weekly fantasy picks for any of you playing some fantasy football on the weekly basis. Basically, even if you're playing like a full season league where you got a roster together, maybe you can find a way to get some of these guys we mentioned. I mean, most of them are probably going to be off the radar, but maybe you could sneak in a defense or something that's just sitting in free agency or something, and we can help you out there. But mostly this is relating to guys that we would go with for the weekly fantasy picks. Jake, who are you picking to be your quarterback in weekly fantasy this week?
Picking Ryan Tannehill. He's going against one of the weaker secondaries in the NFL, in the Arizona Cardinals, and he has this guy named Julio Jones on his team now. So, the past meeting the present here with Julio Jones and A.J. Brown, going to give Ryan Tannehill some nasty weapons. The loss of real solid tight end Jonnu Smith may hurt, but I think Ryan Tannehill, even with how much they run with Derrick Henry, could still torch that Arizona secondary for a ton of points.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. I just don't know. The reason I stayed away from that one is like you said, because of Derrick Henry. I don't know if they'll pull away early in that game, and if they pull away early, it may present some issues in how much they throw the ball to actually get a significant output from the quarterback position. My guy that I like this week, at least in terms of a matchup, I like the matchup he's got here, and I like basically no matter how this game plays out, he'll still be getting me points. Baltimore heads to Las Vegas for Monday Night Football, and I think Lamar Jackson's a good choice this week, just because I don't love the Raiders' defense like much at all. I don't see anything too much that scares me that says that the Ravens won't be able to move the ball, and I know that even if the Ravens get a lead, that Lamar Jackson will still be running with the football a decent way into the game. Obviously, rushing yards play a huge role in fantasy, and I just think the matchup for him this week is too good to stay away from. That's who I like for quarterback. Running back, who you got?
Running back. Another team that's playing against a crappy team. I have James Robinson as they take on the Houston Texans. Houston Texans got rid of Shaq Lawson, who I think was the best. No, he was the best player on their defensive line. Didn't even let him play a game. So he's out there now. And Trevor Lawrence, I mean, he's going to need some adjusting to the NFL game. Best way to do that is have the best rookie running back last season take over and get some carries for him. So I think James Robinson can really go to town against the Texans.
That's a good pick. I'm not going to argue with that one, especially with ETN not being able to play now for the year. It feels like it's guaranteed got to be James Robinson's show. And yeah, I like the Jaguars in that matchup, at least as of now. You'll have to see our real game picks later in the week to know for sure if I go with them. But with that being said, I'd say that James Robinson's a good pick, and I think they should be able to run the ball later into that game if they are able to build any sort of lead at all. For me, the matchup I like Minnesota going to Cincinnati and getting Dalvin Cook involved. Even though we're kind of getting to the point where basically considering Minnesota basically like a middle of the road team, this is one of the teams that I consider to be one of the worst in football, to just be completely honest with you. The offense is where the bright spot is for the Bengals if they have a bright spot, and I'm not excited about the defense at all. Dalvin Cook with that scheme, how they run the ball, I think they'll be able to run all over the Bengals. And in recent years, we've seen teams run all over the Bengals a lot, such as like the Baltimore Ravens. I really like Dalvin Cook this week in a matchup. Maybe not too cheap, but I think the production you could get out of him would definitely pay off.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with that either. I'm not even the biggest Vikings fan.
Who you got? Who you got for wide receiver?
A wide receiver? Well, I picked Ryan Tannehill because he's going up against the weak secondary in Arizona. So I'm going to pick a guy that's going up against the weakest secondary in the NFL last season. And it doesn't look like it got much better. And I'm going with the Heisman Trophy winner, Devontae Smith, against the Atlanta Falcons here. Jalen Hurts and him have a connection from college that I think is going to translate over. And Jalen Smith is also going to be fighting for his job week in and week out. So
Jalen Hurts.
I'm looking at his name on my. I'm looking at Devontae Smith's name on my paper, and it just keeps there. All right, Jalen Hurts is going to have to show out week in and week out to maintain his job as starter. Now that Gardner Minshew is going to be nipping at his heels, so I think Devontae Smith has the opportunity to have a bunch of big games all throughout the season, especially since he's really the only number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 receiver on that team. Not a lot of receiver talent for them outside of Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz, and those guys are tight ends. So if you want anything on the outside, it's going to be Devontae Smith.
Yeah, I can't say for sure that like I know what the Falcons are going to do schematically very well. Few things. I like this as probably like a cheaper pick if you need a guy. If you need a guy and like this is one of your last guys you're picking and it's like okay, he's not too expensive. I can pick him up and put him in where I already spent more at other positions, right?
Yeah.
Some concerns I have though, just like I don't know how the Falcons are going to run their secondary. But yeah, you're right. The secondary is pretty weak. But if they've got AJ Terrell just shadowing him because, you know, I feel like he's kind of the obvious number one receiver in that Eagles offense now. That could hurt him slightly. I don't think that makes him like he's not going to catch a ball or something, but I think that makes it slightly harder on him. And then also just the fact that it seemed like even though they had a good connection in college and right they did play college football together, it seemed like in the preseason they weren't getting on the same page too quickly. And my only concern there is not that they won't be able to at all, just that it may take like a quarter or a half into the game before they really get a solid connection going there. That's really my main concern. I don't think over like the long run it'll be a huge concern. Just coming out week one, it may be a little slow. But once again, here I'm kind of cheating because I'm just picking a guy that's probably going to be a high-cost guy. But just from what we saw in the matchup last year against this team, I really like him. I think the Bills are going to go back to the well that helped them so well last year when they played the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think Stephon Diggs is going to be a huge part of the game this week. And he will, be... He'll be the main showcase on the offensive side of the ball for the Bills, at least besides Josh Allen. And I think once again, just because he had so much success against Pittsburgh last year, he'll be looked to again for the Bills offense. Maybe Pittsburgh tries to cover him up more, and that helps with other guys. But I feel like this Bills offense, and especially Allen and Diggs, no matter how much you try to like play to help them, they'll be able to eventually get something going. And just with how Pittsburgh's defense looks, I feel like this is a good matchup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't disagree with that there. Diggs showed out in that Steelers game with the Bills last season. So, I mean, I'm not going to knock you for going back to that pick.
Okay, yeah. Who you got for tight end?
Tight end. This is probably like my first high cost guy out of here because I'm looking at these games. I'm thinking, how's this going to shake out? There's really 3 elite tight end options that you want to go with in your weekly fantasy picks that you're having here. I mean, you got your Wallers, you got your Kelce's, but I'm going with Kittle here. He's going against the Lions, and I mean, come on, just let him feast at that point if he's going up against the Lions. Jimmy G and him have a special connection. The wide receiver talent is good on that team, but it hasn't developed into anything that is even borderline elite level like George Kittle is at the tight end position. And Kittle's bouncing back from that injury. I think he's going to want a big week one. And, I mean, if there's anyone who eats more kneecaps than Dan Campbell, I think it'd be George Kittle.
Yeah, I like that one too. I was looking at that one when I was trying to make this pick for the tight end spot. But honestly, just because I think he'll be a little cheaper, I still really don't like Philadelphia's secondary or really much of their defense as a whole. And just because Kyle Pitts is a rookie, I feel like he may be, at least in weekly fantasy, cheaper. I know when you look at him in terms of fantasy leagues, like for the whole season, he's probably like the number 4 tight end already, which coming in is absolutely crazy. But since it's week one and it's still like there may be a question mark up in the air, you get him a little cheaper than you can get Kittle, and it may be just that a little more value than you could get otherwise. But I definitely like Kittle too. and it's really close. It's just trying to figure out where the perfect value is at for these guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And who do you finish off for your defense of the week?
Well, you and I all throughout the offseason have been calling for Justin Fields to start week 1 for the Bears. And that isn't going to happen. Andy Dalton's going to get out there. And when we've talked about, when could Justin Fields possibly get in here, we don't think it's going to be week 2, even though we think that week 1 Andy Dalton's going to lose because he has to go up against the Rams defense. They're going to just sun Andy Dalton in this game. He did not look good when he played for the Cowboys last year, especially when he had to play against any defense that was close to competent. And the Rams defense is far from just close to competent. They are an elite unit. I mean, on the same level as the Bears defense, except the thing is, the Bears defense is going to get tired having to be on the field the whole game because the Rams are just forcing 3-and-outs of turnovers from Andy Dalton. I mean, maybe Justin Fields does get out there, and if that happens, then I resign my pick. If Matt Nagy has an epiphany at halftime, it's like, we need to get the kid out there because Andy's stinking up the joint. But with Andy stinking up the joint, I think the Rams could put up major points.
Do you think I feel like the game really has to get out of hand for him to say that. Do you think that the game could actually get that out of hand that Justin Fields steps in this week?
Yeah, I think it could.
You think they could be down like 24-0 at halftime?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like the chances of that, but I actually do think it's a possibility, and I really can't believe that this is the Sunday night opener we got. Yeah. My defensive pick for the week, I was looking at 2 here, but who I ended up going with is from a game you also already talked about, back to San Francisco at Detroit. Yeah, I feel like San Francisco's still probably getting looked down upon slightly just because of, last season not being the most tremendous. I think the Lions are not going to be an impressive team at all this year. Those two things combined, I really think that San Francisco is going to have a pretty good defensive showing against these guys and may even force a decent amount of turnovers, sacks, that type of thing, and get extra points alongside just not allowing a lot of points, just getting even bonus points from there. So I think that's a good pick for the defensive side, and yeah, I don't know. I don't think you're going to disagree with that.
No, I can't. I mean, I think you could pick any defense against the Lions of the season, and I'll be like, yeah, that's a good pick.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, is that it? You all set?
Yeah, I think we can cut this here.